Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Business Success Podcast. Today, Jonathan and I are joined by Kate Bleasedale and Sam Goldman from Nirvana Vets, who are first and foremost two very cool people, but also Nirvana Vets is an incredible company, and we're going to learn more about that today. So quick intros. I'm Adriana. I work for Business Success Marketing and HR. We've got
Jonathan Keeble, Director of Business Success Southwest Limited, which is HR and Marketing.
Kate.
I'm Kate. Myself and Sam are directors at Nirvana Vets, qualified vet and poodle lover.
I love it. Anything to add, Sam?
Yeah, no, hello, I'm Sam. I'm the other director for Nirvana Vets.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for being here with us today. It's very exciting. You're our first guests on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for making the trip. Both Jonathan and I, as you know, have our own dogs, so we know how much love there is when it comes to your pets. They are part of your family. And obviously with that comes the inevitable eventually of saying goodbye, which is something that none of us want to think about, is it?
No.
And it's something that we avoid thinking about until the time when it just has to happen. And that's when Nirvana Vets come in. So you guys offer the alternative to taking your dog or your cat into the vet to say goodbye and actually offer the at-home euthanasia service.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit more about Nirvana Vets and kind of what was the catalyst to getting started.
Yeah. So, I mean, Nirvana Vets it's our baby, really. We know that when we, thinking of our parents' dogs who were older, we've got Bertie, who's 11 and a half, Hector, who's 12 and a half. And the pair of them they just hate the vets with a passion, absolutely hate it. They turn into quivering messes. Hector pretends that he's not worried, but is very, very worried. Bertie will just flat out lie on the floor, refuse to move anywhere. So you can't, they're just, it's a really, really negative, horrible, bad connotations environment for them. Bad things happen there. They get stabbed with needles. It hurts. They don't like it. It's very, very, very stressful.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I would ever want for either of those dogs is to spend their final moments in that horrible place. And there's no, the vet practice can be as nice as it can be. I mean, vets care, nurses care, they do everything they can to make their patients comfortable. But at the end of the day, when you are, no one likes going to hospital. No one likes going to the dentist. It doesn't matter how nice your dentist is. You're just not going to. You go because you have to. You don't go because it's a fun day out.
Of course.
And the last thing we want is for our boys to, be in that place in their final moments and
it's
to be
just
scared.
important for the owners, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Having that last
That's
bit of time.
Exactly.
Because I think we've all had at some stage had to put our dogs down at some stage. And I remember the best one that ever happened, the experience I had with me with a border collie, where I had her in a field and I was working and she was watching me working, and the sun was on her and the vet came up, because we called the vet out, and he came up and put her to sleep. And that was just a lovely place to be. So that was really good for my mental well-being.
Yes.
And the dog was in a good place and wouldn't have known any different. And that's the sort of service that you're providing.
And it helps people, I think, to recover from what is quite a traumatic experience. Just having an environment that is not stressful for the dog. It's just one element that we can control, at least, that will just help make that grieving process a bit easier to go through.
I think it was she was our first client ever with Nirvana Vets, and her feedback was, and she's actually I think she was a clinical psychologist, but her feedback was that we had removed the trauma from saying goodbye, which meant that the healing process was accelerated, because we were, when you go through that, you've got the trauma of it happening, and that can be quite severe if
can stay with you forever.
Really. The trauma of it can stay forever if it was a particularly traumatic, goodbye, if it was an emergency or something like that. But then you've got the grief. But this client felt that by removing the trauma and her only having the grief and loss to deal with, it's accelerated that that healing process that it was just one thing off her plate.
Yeah.
And it's a heck of a gift to give to a dog as well, to let them depart in a happy place in their own surroundings. It's a great gift, not only for the dog that you're giving, but also for your family as well. That because you're going to have to break the news to the family, and to say you've not taken the dog to an alien place, because I certainly, when I take my dog to the vets, it gets the shakes and it gets all worried and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're actually bringing all this, to the home environment is a very nice thing to do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we like to think really we're vets in disguise, and I like to think most of our patients, they don't realise that we're vets when we're at an owner's house, and that's the important.
So what
bit,
are
really.
sort of the biggest challenges that you have, performing this?
I guess there's the two sides of it. I think that the most challenging thing is to be honest, managing people, because we know how to manage dogs and cats. We know how we know what a dog might throw at us. They might be worried. They might not want us to touch them, and we can manage that. So I think that's actually the lesser side of things, unless you've got a particularly challenging dog. But you can always manage it. But I think managing the owner side of things and helping support them through that process, and I think a lot of most visits. It's people they kind of know what's going to happen if they've been through it before, but I think particularly for the first time that they're going through it, managing their stress and helping them to not project that onto their pet, I think I find that quite challenging.
It's managing the environment so that it's as relaxing as possible for the dog or cat and the owner, and that can sometimes be the most challenging thing when you've got lots of factors, perhaps children, for example, that are getting distressed, or other pets that you've got to manage that might not be perhaps helping the situation. So sometimes we have to sort of it's taking control really of the situation to ensure that we can mould this experience to be as relaxing as possible.
Testament to you guys that you can actually do that, because it's not just going in and kind of doing the job. It's actually the big picture here, which is incredible.
I think
amazing.
I think the thing that sort of impresses me the most, you come from full employment from a veterinary surgery and stuff like that. You have a vision that's going to have an impact on pet owners and their pets, and you've moved away from the security of what I would guess is a pretty well paid job, all right, to launch this. I mean, that's a heck of a leap. I mean, how did you feel about doing the leap?
Gosh,
it is a big leap.
We just tried to not think about it, really.
That's one way.
Do you know what? I didn't even think about it that way. It was just.
It was a bit of a
that's
leap
what
of
we
faith.
were going to do.
But we knew what we wanted to achieve, really, didn't we? And we believed we could do it. And there were moments of doubt, certainly, though. Definitely.
Oh yeah. But I think we kind of felt a bit of a responsibility to offering that for people, particularly during COVID. I think, not being able to go into the vets with their dogs was traumatic all round. Was not good for vets. It wasn't good for dogs. It wasn't good for cats, and it wasn't good for owners. And I think that we really felt a sense of responsibility that, our Bertie and Hector, our parents' dogs, were guaranteed that would be able to happen, because if their own vets at home, because they don't live down here, couldn't do it, we know that we could step in and make sure that they got that. But we really felt a sense of responsibility to all the owners that, us being in practice and working full time, we've had to say no to people. I've had people begging me on the phone for me to come to their house to do it, but in my job I wasn't allowed to. I couldn't. I had to say no, because there wasn't the infrastructure in place to be able to do that within the practice, and it may put other patients at risk because there weren't enough vets in the building. And I think that really gave us that sense of responsibility to be able to deliver that to owners, and that sort of pushed us through.
This vision of yours is not just a local solution to pet owners, and pets. You want to take this wider.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. What's next for Nirvana Vets? What does the future look like?
Yeah, well, it's it's all sort of materialising as we go along. To be honest, it's working it out as we go. Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately the plan is that we want to empower other vets to be able to make the leap that we did, but in a bit more of a less scary way.
Yeah, exactly.
Just giving those building blocks and helping support them through that.
Could you just sort of just go through the whole process from, the pet owner picking up the phone? Mm-hmm. What actually happens?
Well, what we like to offer, we always guarantee owners that they will be able to speak to a vet free of charge for a conversation about their pet's final moments. We don't. I suppose it's just really important that you have a veterinary surgeon that can have these conversations, because often there's a lot of counselling really required. Mm-hmm. We just spend a lot of time listening on the phone, and you've got to give people that time to speak, and it's really important that we get that timing just right, so the owner feels that they've not got any regrets really going forwards. So that really is the first process, and then what we'll do is we'll book them in over the phone most of the time, once we've agreed on the timing.
Yeah, so we'll, they'll be booked in. We ask them to ask their vets to transfer their records over to us, just so that we've got the full clinical picture. We know how much they weigh, we know what dosages we can use, and we also then know if there's any medications we need to avoid. For example, a dog with heart failure, there's certain medications that we won't give them. So we get their clinical history over. There is a deposit to sort of secure us coming out, and then we turn up. So when we get there, clients have got, and it depends on the owner. Some owners know it's definitely time. There's no question about it. They've been through it before or not, but they know that now is the time.
You tend to know, don't you? You tend to know when the time is right.
But some people do need a bit more talking through about it. Yeah. If, for example, they've got questions that they, from seeing the vets, or have questions about the disease that their animal, is suffering from, and sometimes they do, obviously we give them the opportunity to rack our brains of if they, if we think that there is anything else that can be done. And it does happen occasionally that we do go to someone's house, and we examine their pet, talk through, with them how their dog has been, and sometimes we do make the recommendation that actually we don't, we don't go through with the euthanasia on that day. And I think that gives people a lot of peace of mind that we're not just going out there to do the job. We're going out there to assess their animal and come to a mutual decision and agreement with them.
I think sometimes when it's been a very slow decline and it's a chronic condition, it can be quite difficult for owners to know, well, where does the moment come where the quality of life is no longer good enough. It's often not black and white as to, either good enough or not good enough. It's really a spectrum. And so those are those conversations we sometimes have to have when it's just a really gradual decline. It is difficult and not clear always. So it does sometimes
some pet
require.
owners will not want to let go, and you have to think of the interest of the dogs.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So sometimes we have this, where there is a consultation at the beginning, but most of the time, as Kate says, I think generally the owner has received advice from their usual vet practice that it's time, and they're happy with their decision.
They're comfortable with it. So
go on. We're going to bump it. I'm so fascinating this. I got loads of questions to ask you.
So once that decision's been made, we go through the consent form, make sure that we've got their signature and everything, and that everything's been explained, and then we'll proceed with the sedation. So the sedation, depending on if it's a cat or a dog, works slightly differently, but the end goal of the sedation, regardless, is that they are completely asleep. Completely unaware, unconscious, and that it's not going to bother them when we give them the final medication.
And the pet owner can be with the dog at the time as well.
Yeah,
and their favourite
and
spots.
wherever the pet's most happy.
We've done them in all sorts of places.
We do them in the
Have
garden.
you? Oh, yeah.
We've done them in a paddock, in the field. We've done them in people's bedrooms, wherever the pet is just most settled.
Lovely.
And the sedation really, we've formulated and designed the medicines to be used in a combination where the pet just feels like they are drifting off to sleep after sort of a hard long day, like they normally would. So it comes across to the owner as very relaxed, and owners always say, but because the sedation has some painkillers in as well, if the pet is experiencing a bit of discomfort, the owners always say to us, they're sort of sleeping and look so peaceful like they used to look before they were ill. So it's quite therapeutic for the owner, actually,
it's
the sedation as well.
Memory,
it's incredibly special.
Yeah.
It's such a hard time. I just can't think of a better option for people that can do that.
This is when we know you two, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's not something I've ever had to deal with, ever.
Well, we've both got new dogs, haven't we? Mine's 15 months old.
You've always had dogs, haven't you?
Yeah,
So
all my
you've
life.
been through
Yeah.
it.
So, but I would have loved to have used your services, you know.
Yeah. And you've got lots of resources and help and things available on your website, but also your Facebook page, your Instagram page is also really useful for people to check out and keep up with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when the dog's gone, what happens then?
What happens then? So we can organise cremation, sort everything out.
Oh, nice.
There is a weight limit, unfortunately, because when you've got a dog that's the same weight as a human, we just can't deal with it. It's just too much. And it's very, very uncommon, but you do come across 70 to 90 kilo dogs, which is just take a little but provided they're under 45 kilos, we'll take them away with us at the end of the visit, in a very discreet sort of stretcher that we use, and arrange the cremation, and then our nurse Abby returns the ashes.
Oh, nice.
Back to their house. We obviously don't put them in the post or leave them on doorsteps or anything like that. It's a handover.
That's your personal touch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we work with a really nice crematorium, sort of in the local area. They've got lovely landscaped gardens. It's much like a human cemetery. Really, it's very sort of peaceful and serene there. And so the two main options really for the cremation is whether the owner wants the ashes returned to them, which would be an individual cremation, or if they don't, because obviously it's a very individual decision, and so for some people receiving the ashes back might actually sort of be unhelpful. So then they have a nice solution in that situation where they scatter the ashes in the landscape gardens of the pet cemetery, and then owners can go and visit that site if they would like to. So it's a nice setup there.
Yeah,
and of course you've got the option to actually do it all yourself, I suppose, or if you want to bury it in a garden or something or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're a dog owner.
Yeah.
But tell us a bit more about being your dog owner, because you do a lot of shows. You love your dog, don't you?
We can't go the podcast without talking about Carmen.
Oh my goodness,
Absolutely
Carmen.
not.
It's incredible.
Carmen is our life. So she's a standard poodle, a silver standard poodle. So they're a beautiful colour. They're not a very common colour, and they start off. They're born jet black, completely jet black, and then as they mature over the first, it can take up to 3 years, their coat colour changes from this jet black to a beautiful silvery grey colour. So that's her colouring. She is
such a sweetheart.
She is. She's a very gentle
She does bounce
dog.
like a lamb, doesn't she?
Yes.
Yeah,
She's a little
does.
spring lamb.
She's basically our child.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you have to you have to go with Kate to many shows under sufferance, I think.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Right, Sam?
supportive poodle dad. Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, this weekend we finally got through the official certificate for her French champion title.
Well done.
Yeah, she went all the way to Paris last April.
Yeah.
And won her French champion titles. So very, very proud of her. So that's finally
Testament to you as well. It's hard work.
It's
I know,
a lot of
just
work.
watching you do
Kate's
it.
very
Yeah.
dedicated.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of work. And she's also qualified for Crafts for Life.
Amazing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. That's incredible news. So just to finish off then, what 3 words would you use to describe Nirvana Vets?
Well, I mean, the most important thing to us is that our business is compassionate. And it's not just compassionate to pets, it's compassionate to owners, but also very importantly to the people that we work with as well. From our nurse Abby, who gets paid fairly, because I think a lot of vet nurses are not paid fairly.
Yeah.
It's an issue we're really trying to tackle, isn't
Absolutely.
Yeah, the mental health within the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a massive
But also,
focus for you.
absolutely, but also compassion towards ourselves. Cutting ourselves some slack and just
Definitely.
letting.
It's hard-hitting stuff.
Yeah.
And to deal with
Exactly.
it day on day,
Exactly.
Yeah, it requires a lot of kindness
Yeah.
to everyone, yourself,
Yeah.
everyone within the company, and obviously all the clients and pets.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, compassion, being an ethical business
Yes,
is
of
very
course.
important to
Yeah.
us, which kind of ties in with that as well. And I think
You're
Really,
pretty
the
timely
value-
as well. You're pretty timely as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You did mention that in your podcast. You're pretty timely. But I think value as well.
Yeah.
So maybe there's 4 things.
There you
I'm
Yeah.
sure we
Yeah.
could think
Lots
of
of
plenty
great
more as
things.
well. Yeah.
And I mean, we could just chat to you for ages now.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I think
And I think actually as dog owners yourself, what comes over to me a great deal is about the empathy. Do you actually understand?
Yeah.
What
Hugely.
the dog owner is going
The
through. It's so
importance of it.
important.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
the fact that you're listening, because a lot of people, they just want to be able to talk and be heard.
Yes.
And the fact that you're taking the time out, to listen, so people can be heard, that's a great service, and giving that empathy is so important,
Yeah.
because it's the start of that process for that, calm and sort of closure on what is man's best friend.
yeah.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, I'd like to finish this our
Yes.
second podcast, and we
It is
finished.
a podcast. It's been great chatting to you guys. I know you've got lots of lovely testimonials and reviews as well. If anyone wants to go and look at those, they're just lovely. And total testament to you too. But yeah, it's been great chatting to you. Thank you so much again
Thank you
for
for
being
having
here
us.
with us.
Thank you, yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan,
Yeah.
as always.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Kate.
Thank
And
you.
Nice to meet
thank you for listening. Bye.